Hi, it's Colleen here. Today I'm going to show you how to add elegant details to your cards using WOW embossing powders. Here I'm showing you how I label my embossing powders so that I can easily find the colors that I want. Today we're going to be working with a new release called Pick Me Up. It's a trio of powders that will be released later on in the month of January, and they're really gorgeous. They're just so beautiful. And today I'm going to be making a rainbow cloud stencil. So to do this, you need several colors of inks in rainbow colors, your blending brushes, and any kind of cloud stencil that you have. So I am using Pinkfresh Studios ink here. I wanted to use some pastel inks, and I really like these colors. So I'm going across the rainbow spectrum, adding different colors. And each time I add a new layer, I change the direction of the stencil so that each cloud doesn't look exactly the same. That's the nice thing about cloud stencils, is that you can change it up pretty quickly. And then I wipe it down between each layer so that I'm not bringing the old ink into the new ink and creating mud. So this is basically the first step in what I'm doing, which is just creating a beautiful background. And once I'm done with that, I will be going back in and adding the details. So choose a background of whatever you want, whether it's flowers, rainbows, and think about the details that you want to add using your embossing powders. How do you want to add those details? Where do you want to add those details? And how will they really help your card go from average to wow, Shazam? For me, a rainbow card is so easy to make, and it's a great way to a great method to use if you're a beginner. So if you're not sure how to add the details using your WOW embossing powders, create a simple background for yourself and start small and then work your way up as you go along. And at the end of this video, I will have more details to show you. So now that my rainbow is complete, I'm going back in now with a WOW embossing pen. This pen works the same way that your embossing pad works, only it is good for small details. So I'm going in with this embossing buddy, and it's an anti-static material that helps prevent your embossing powders from going where you don't want them to go. So I ran that across the card base, and now I'm ready to add my details. And the ink that I'm going to be using today is from that trio, Pick Me Up. It's called Minty, and it's really beautiful. It's crystally and gorgeous, perfect for these rainbow clouds. So now I'm lining up the stencil in the same area that I did before when I added my ink. Once I get it lined up, then I will be able to go back in and add the details with my embossing pen. And what you're going to see here is I'm just going to trace over the edge with that embossing pen. And the nice thing about these pens is that they're really juicy, so a little goes a long way, and it may not seem like you're seeing a lot of ink on there, but you really are. So what I'm going to do is go through each line and do the same thing. I'm going to repeat the same process. Line up that stencil and go over it, tracing over the edge with my embossing pen. Now, the embossing pen works similar to the embossing ink in that it is slow drying. So you can add a lot of detail before you go in and add your embossing powder. You'll see here that I am adding every layer before I go in to add the powder. And it will work nicely. It will add the details very, very nicely. So don't worry about it drying out on you. These embossing pens stay juicy for a while. Now I'm adding my embossing powder, and look how beautiful that color is. It's a crystally mint color, and it's just perfect for adding details. And again, this will be released later in January, so be on the lookout for our release party. So if you have any extra embossing powder that's flaking around there, go in with a brush like I'm doing and remove the extra, because sometimes the embossing buddy just doesn't get it all. Now, here's a close-up of what it looks like after I've added the embossing powder and used my heat tool to dry it. Isn't it beautiful how much detail is added there? I think this is my absolute favorite technique, is adding little details using wow embossing powders. So what I'm doing is finishing up my card. I added my background to my card base, and now I'm just working on my sentiment. Because I have such a busy card background, I don't want to do much more than just adding a sentiment, because I want that background to be the showstopper, the focal point, and I want that embossing powder to really shine through. And remember that you can also add little details to your sentiments. You can emboss your sentiments as well as embossing your background. So don't limit yourself to certain things. Use your imagination and think about the things that you can emboss and how they will complement one another. So I'm just finishing up with my sentiment, removing the foam backing, which is always a pain for me to do, but the tweezers really help. And then once I'm done, I can add my sentiment and my card is finished. It was that simple. It's gorgeous. Here's a few more examples of using the embossing powder to add details to flowers, to backgrounds, and as I mentioned before, use your imagination. If you like what you see here, please remember to subscribe to the Wow Embossing channel and hit the thumbs up.